to go live. Okay, we are live and welcome everybody to the Medium channel where we bring you the spirituality behind the message. I will apologize right now for the technical glitches as I'm noticing that my image is delayed right now for whatever reason. God knows, what's going on with the internet gods. But that said, I'm really thrilled to have VergO on and to teach us a little bit about um, plant medicines, psychedelics, and stuff like that. So, hey, VergO, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to be here. It's good to connect with you and with your community.
Thank you. It's great to connect with you also. And you're actually our second guest in Germany. So,
Yeah, in Germany.
yeah, we had Krista from the who's been watching our videos for a while, and she did a feng shui thing just a couple of a few weeks ago, and she came from Germany also. So we know that it's late, so we're gonna get all the information out nice and quickly, so you can get your beauty rest and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I'm gonna catch a flight tomorrow morning to the UK.
oh my goodness! All right, all
Mhm.
right. So without further ado, usually what we do is I'll talk for a minute or two just to let the live people get their notifications, and I have some questions or some things. Um, but I've always been interested in things like psychedelics. I mean, I came of age in the 70s, so recreationally I tried them. But the funny thing is, yeah, as a recreational experience, one time I had this amazing, like mind blowing awakening, and that just started my whole trajectory. It's kind of like for me, it was sort of like the first shaking of seeing beyond the matrix, of being able to perceive energy beyond the Maya or illusion. And I think that that's part of what these medicines do. I can see that I'm heavily delayed on the screen. Sorry about that again. I'm going to try to ignore that. But I find, yeah, and find, and I found in the spiritual community, there's a lot of division on, it's the use of psychedelics. Is that a good thing? Is that cheating? Is that a bad thing? And that now that we're like 2022, more people are waking up, more people are understanding that there is some therapeutic value to some of these these substances like psilocybin or DMT or stuff like that. And I mean, and people debate, they fight over it or whatever. And I think both sides are right and both sides are wrong at the same time. I mean, it's a tool, right, that we can use or misuse, depending. So I just wanted to ask you what your take is on that, if I may.
Yeah, it's interesting that perspective because I got into psychedelics not through recreational use, but
Mm.
uh, through, for example, talks on YouTube from Alan Watts or Ram Dass or
Oh,
Terence McKenna. And those talks were inherently kind of related to spirituality, to Zen Buddhism. And I was quite young when I discovered that and heard about that for the first time. I was like, this is interesting. And so I kind of discovered spirituality and Zen Buddhism or Hinduism and this whole thing of self-actualization at the same time with psychedelics. And then I tried LSD for the first time and had my first psychedelic experiences. And so I never like got into that path through recreational use. So it's interesting to hear many people and many people's stories of getting into these substances through recreational use, for example, at festivals or just like whatever with friends. And I just took them alone and just got into that through that. And so for me, it has always been part of my spirituality, of my path, because in the early experiences also I opened up to myself and discovered and learned a lot about myself and the world and spirituality itself through direct experience. And I think this is so valuable, like the direct experience. As you said, it's a tool for direct experience into your own spirituality. And this is, for me at least, very valuable. But I can also understand, of course, the other perspective, that some people are kind of cautious about that. Some people are not kind of interested in that kind of stuff because they prefer a more authentic way of spirituality for them, which maybe doesn't include these plant medicines or substances. And that is also, of course, totally fine. Like, each to their own. Everybody can decide for their own if this path of using these medicines feels right for them and is right for them and is valuable for them or not. So yeah, that's my take on it.
I took myself off for a second, hoping that my image would catch up, but it didn't work. So there's still a delay. I apologize for that. I know that's a little bit weird, but yeah, back in the day, I read Ram Dass, Journey of Awakening. He talked about his experience with the I forgot which one of his teachers, where basically the teacher took 900 mics of LSD and just kept winking at him, and basically. And that he got his answer, that he was in such a high place spiritually that the medicine didn't even affect him, which is interesting. And then I read a lot of Carlos Castaneda, and they talk about the mushroom journeys and everything. So I always felt that hallucinogens, psychedelics, plant medicines had their place. And once I had this experience, I started to treat it much differently. So when I did use them, I would go out in the woods. I'd almost make up my own ceremonies. And then later on, I did a few Huachuma ceremonies and Ayahuasca with the shamans. And I really learned a lot and grew a lot from that. So I have to ask, what was your craziest experience that you've had? If there was just one crazy experience.
Just one crazy experience. I've had a couple of crazy experiences.
Yeah.
There are like different categories of crazy. For example, I've had very intense experiences, and I've had very intense experiences in different settings. So it kind of depends on the setting. But one journey just came to my mind for my craziest experience. And I think I haven't even shared that on my YouTube channel. That report is still gonna come, because it's a really long and great story, but I will try to keep it short. So I was in Brazil, and we were hiking up a mountain in Brazil. Me and 4 other friends. 2 of them, I was traveling with one, and we met 2 who were kind of local to that place. So they were our guides in the mountain, and we walked there. We were at this beautiful. We had this beautiful view, and it was like a really kind of dangerous mountain. We were planning to set our camp up in a cave, and then we walked to this cliff where this waterfall was. And on the way to the cliff, we took about, I don't know, around 700 mics of acid. So me and my friend, and the other ones also 300 to 400 mics, so like a very high dose. And on the way back from the cliff to the cave, we just got lost. And we got lost in these mountains at night, and there's nobody there. It was really scary. And like for the first 1 or 2 hours maybe of our way, I was just following the other guys. I didn't even realize we were lost. And like at about 2 hours later, I was like realizing slowly, it's like, oh, we're lost. Like we nobody knows where we are and where our way back to the cave is. And so we're kind of trying to find our way back, because there's like no proper way. It was just all mountains, and there were kind of poisonous snakes everywhere and cliffs. It was dark, you couldn't see properly. So that was definitely one of my craziest experiences. And at the end, we got back to the cave. My friend was like, I found the way. And then we kind of went through the bushes, had like scratches everywhere, went through the bushes. We found the way, the other 3 people of us. And then our friend was gone again. And he just disappeared. So we were like, okay, he's probably off to the cave. We went to the cave again. He was not there. And he was gone for the whole night. We were even going off again, just like screaming through the mountains, it's like, where are you? And it's like, I mean, it's dangerous to get lost there. People have died in those kind of places, just like falling into a hole and breaking their legs or something. And we couldn't find him anymore. And we almost had to give up. We went back to the cave. It was early morning. We had to leave the place again because it was an 8-hour hike back to the car, and we didn't have any food anymore. And we're like, okay, we have to go back now. And then right at breakfast time, he appeared again, and we all survived. We all had a great night, and that was definitely one of my craziest experiences, and also a lesson for everybody that it is good to be responsible and safe in your setting in those experiences. I mean, in the mountains, for example, when you have a proper guide, low dose experiences can be very beautiful. But 700 miles of acid, the whole mountain is watching, and it's a very, very intense experience, and sometimes even out of body, maybe a little bit. That was crazy and very dangerous, but it's a great story now, and one of my favorite experiences so far, and very valuable as well for me to feel the power of the mountains, to be connected to the land, and to further deepen that trust into life and the universe. So that was great.
Yeah, I keep flashing out because I know the fact that my image is delayed right now is very distracting. So that's why I keep when VergO's talking, why I keep I take myself off the screen again. I apologize for that. Yeah, that is a crazy experience. Oh my God. Thanks for sharing. I mean, I've had a few doozies myself. Just quickly, one thing that sticks in my mind. One time I did acid. I went into a bar, started playing pinball, and then I felt like I connected with the machine. Long story short, 3 hours later, I had 17 free games. I turned the machine over like a half a dozen times. I had like hundreds of free balls. I only lost 2 balls in yeah, and I was thinking of Tommy, the rock opera Tommy, the pinball wizard, and all that. Yeah, when I was doing that, I was thinking about that. Like, oh, maybe there's something to like being deaf, blind, and dumb, and just working with a pinball machine. But I'm getting a few interesting questions coming up, and people are curious about like say somebody wanted to try them or whatever, like what would you recommend, like how maybe they could go about doing that, or stuff like that.
That's a very good question. It's a very broad question because I think
a little loaded, yes.
because I think it's very individual for everybody. It's unique to every situation of the individual, at like depending on where they're at physically, where they're at in life, just like with their career, how they feel about their relationships, how they are environmentally, and just like all of these factors kind of play a role in these experiences, because these experiences are just like they enhance your life and your perspective on life. And so first of all, I think it depends on where you are at in life. And then I think if you want to start and are curious and interested in those experiences, then it's good to kind of learn about them and learn, like, just like get yourself a little bit into the topic and research a little bit about it. Research the substances, the different types of psychedelic substances that are out there, what they do, what the dosage range is, and just get a little bit of knowledge in. And then I think just to get into it, good preparation is very important for those experiences. So just not just take something and see what happens. I mean, you could do that and it could turn out very well, but it could also turn very bad. So it's a little bit safer to prepare yourself. And preparation is like a huge topic for those experiences, because you can decide for yourself. Again, individually, it's a matter of preference, especially in the beginning. You can see how you feel about doing them alone, with just like maybe just a microdose, just to see how it feels, and then just go a little bit higher to see how that feels, and go a little bit higher and create like your own ritual about it. Or you can have a friend, maybe even an experienced person who has experienced them before, with you, just to be and watch over you and give you that kind of safe space. Or you can search for a professional guide who, or underground therapist who does these things. Or you can go to a retreat. There are many retreats around the world, in the Netherlands, Jamaica, which are even legal. So you have to decide for yourself, like, how much do you want to be involved in illegal activity? How safe do you feel about that? Or, of course, there are legal alternatives. You can travel to places to connect with shamans, with other guides, with other facilitators, with therapists, and like decide for yourself with whom you want to work, or if you want to explore and journey alone, which is also valuable. But like when you are beginning, you can just, those are just some questions to consider, if like um, how you want to work with those substances. And then also another point is the intention. I think it's very valuable to get clear about your intention of why do I actually want to go into those experiences? What do I think I would get out of it? Or what topics do I want to contemplate during those experiences? Is it because I feel a little bit depressed or anxious, or and I want to kind of better my mental health and use them for that? So maybe that's a little bit, it would be a little bit more wise to go with a therapist or something, somebody who is kind of specialized to mental health issues and that. Or you just want to get a little bit of creative insight into your career or into your art, or you want to explore shamanism a little bit, and or just out of curiosity is also a good start, but this is a little bit more vague. So a specific intention, I think, is very valuable and nice to have. And part of this preparation process, I think, especially for beginners, is has nothing to do with psychedelics itself, but with the practices in your life for your own well-being and clarity that can kind of ground you and stabilize you. So if you don't have one, maybe consider to build up a meditation practice, or consider to just journal every day for 10 to 20 minutes to just get to know yourself a little bit better. Go spend time in nature a little bit. Or if you're kind of scared and anxious in this consciousness expansion, I would recommend to start slow. So either take very small doses, or maybe just go to a meditation retreat, 10 days of Vipassana. This is going to create a different state of consciousness for you. Or do heavy breathing exercises, shamanic breathing, Wim Hof breathing, do a little bit of cold exposure. Those are always, there are many different techniques, like a lot, that can change your state of awareness and your state of consciousness to ways that are not directly correlated to the psychedelic experiences, but very similar in their state of expansion. So you can kind of still get something out of these practices, and you can get used to a different state of consciousness if you haven't experienced that already. So I think this is just like a few. I think there's a lot more to say for beginners, but this is just a few things that come to my mind at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. I very well said. I agree with that. I think preparation, and why did we want to do it? I think having that all defined, like what's the reason, and it's all, like anything else, it's always going to be, spirit's going to take you in a whole other direction. But I like the idea of preparation. I like the idea of journaling. I like all of that stuff. And um, great. So what else? All right. So we addressed that issue. Somebody else had a question, and I wanted to get back to that for a second. Well, a lot of people are talking about Carlos Castaneda because I mentioned him and mentioned them. And one of the things they talk about is that when you have like spiritual like openings, whether it's through hallucinogens or plants or whatever, it's like a change in your assemblage point. And you brought up a couple of really good points, like when you open up, whether it's through meditation, through breathing. We talk a lot about Wim Hof here also, and all that kind of stuff. So this is all things that we talk about here. You start to feel like everything's alive. You start to feel vibration and energy. So a lot of times when people do these and they're open enough, then they start to feel the flow and experience the flow. And when that happens, your life changes because you realize something that you didn't know before. It's almost like your energy centers start to open. Now, of course, for me anyway, my perspective is that doing things like this shamanic ceremonies or doing your own ceremonies can help open the door and bring you awareness. But of course, it's the spiritual work that's going to make that like your experience, like with the medicines, you're always going to come down, no matter what kind of experience you have, you're always going to come down. So maybe like what we do in between is important, or what spiritual practices that we do that complement that. So let me see. I have a couple of questions written down. So did we talk about the scariest experience? Well, how about that's a good one. Because I saw one of your videos recently, and let me get your website back up, because I have to say that what VergO does, one of the things he does on this channel, he has beautiful talks on just spirituality and opening, but he also shares some of his journeys, basically. like like he'll do DMT or mushrooms or whatever, or LSD even, and then he'll film it and talk about the experience. So if you really want to dive into like what it's like if you've never done it, you check the channel and check some of these, because you're very open and very candid about you're sharing. And I saw a recent video where you're just saying, well, I'm still scared when I do it. And, we should have, I don't know if fear is the right word, respect. Maybe that's a better word, like respecting the medicine. And, I did, I don't know, it was about 12, 13 years ago. I did ayahuasca, and I'm very candid on my channel about my addiction problems in the past, prior drug use. I prepared for it. I stopped smoking weed for a week. You had to do it to work with the shaman and work with the ayahuasca. And basically the experience that I had, it took me to my birth, my death, and the present moment at the same time. And it gave me this realization that every problem I had in life, and addiction was a big one, stemmed from the trauma of being born, just the pain of being born. And it was a horrendous journey. I think spirit tricked me, because I was doing a Huachuma ceremony, and the serpent crossed my path, and I took that as a sign that we're ready for the ayahuasca. And then I asked spirit, said, "Oh, it'll be easy or whatever." No, it was not easy. It started out with golden, like this image of golden women pouring golden nectar on me. Then everything went black, and it was a really, really hard journey. Long story short, I got to this point, this realization. I had no desire to go back to smoking weed. It really cured me. And I found that I experienced about 20 to 25 years of therapy in 4 hours, basically. And I just was wondering, what your take on that is in terms of like therapy or psychology. I know that people are starting to recognize this can be a very valuable tool, and certainly my experiences would dictate that. But I just wanted to get your take on that, if I may.
Should I still share my scariest experience first?
Yes. Okay.
I can also weave that into the part of the therapy. I think it's kind of related as well. Mm,
Perfect. Yeah, don't mind me.
so, my scariest experience. Yeah, thank you for your kind words for my channel. I am going to share the report of this scariest experience that I've ever had, which is also related to ayahuasca, in the next coming weeks on the channel. I haven't shared it yet. It's been over a year now that I've had this experience. And yeah, this is part of what I like about working with these medicines. Um, they humble me. They humble me over and over and over again. And this
Yeah,
is why I still have so much respect, and I kind of still start to shake when I think about going into deeper and very intense journeys, because I know I will get humbled. It's like it's so powerful, and I think this being humbled over and over and over again um, made me a little bit more kind and compassionate, and just like very open to the world and the people around me, and very and just like very, yeah, I can it's hard to describe. It gave me a very kind vibration that I put out into the world, which people around me notice, and which is really nice, which is kind of a healing effect, because it opens me up to more love that I can integrate into my being and then share with the world. But also, what I think is not talked about enough in the psychedelic community is those experiences can get very scary. They can get very, very, very scary. So my scariest experience has been an ayahuasca experience. Um, in Peru, I did a 14-day ayahuasca retreat with 8 ceremonies. So we drank about every other day. And the seventh ceremony was the most intense psychedelic experience I've ever had in my life. It was related to death. So at the beginning of the journey, I had like a complete opening to the love of God, and like a complete God realization, and was crying in bliss of that realization. And then that realization slowly, not slowly, but suddenly turned over into the realization of I am dying right now. And I always thought, because I've been doing this spiritual work for a couple of years, that I was ready to die. I always thought that I had no fear of death. But this was just a thought. It was kind of annoying, but it was just still a thought. And then ayahuasca was like, okay, if you want to continue to go deeper into this infinity, and that was my intention for the retreat, to self-understanding, God realization, an experience of infinity. Uh, and ayahuasca was like, yeah, okay, if you want to go deeper into that realization of infinity, then you would have to die for that. So my sense of ego, my sense of self would have to die for that. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. This is insane. Like I would have to die for that right now. And then the whole ceremony, it was actually lasting for over 8 hours, this session. Sometimes it's just 4 to 6 usually, but this one was lasting for 8 hours or more for me. It was just a process of constantly letting go into death. So it's like, okay, I will have to let go of my family. I can let go of that. Okay, letting go deeper into death. And then things were popping up from my life. So, but what about my best friend? Okay, if I die right now, I would have to let go of my best friend. Letting go, letting go, letting go. But what about my life purpose? What about the YouTube channel? What about my work here on Earth? Okay, I would have to let that go as well. And I was going through this really difficult process of letting go. I was like, should I scream out and call for an ambulance? Because it's so unbelievably deep. It's very hard to communicate in words through the internet and through a camera, because I completely lost the context of an ayahuasca ceremony. I was not conscious anymore that I was having taken ayahuasca, or that I was in a ceremony setting with a shaman. I completely forgot all that and went out of my body, and then there was just me and the reality that I was dying right now. And I was like, should I call for help? Should I, like, but there was nothing. It was just certain that I had to die. And it was terrifying. It was deeply, deeply terrifying in the core of my being. So it was so scary. And the scariest part about it, which now in retrospect and after integrating that experience for over a year, was letting go of awareness itself, letting go of consciousness itself. So after I was letting go for a couple of hours through everything, I had to let go. It asked me to let go of my sense of awareness, and that was where I stopped, where I said no. So I was on the brink of going unconscious, on the brink of losing consciousness, and I was like, okay, no, please, don't do that. Like, I can happily be aware of dying for the next 5 hours, but please don't like, losing consciousness means actual death, right? Like, in the context of this experience, of course. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I was holding on to my sense of awareness, which in retrospect I would say, like, okay, what would have happened if I would have let go of my awareness? Would I've, like, for my spiritual understanding, I would have broken through into nothingness, into, which is kind of this void, this emptiness, which is also the everythingness, the Godhead. But I was not ready. So, and now I'll come to the point of the therapeutic effect for it. At that point, that experience shook me to the core of my being. I was terrified after that to ever take the substance again. I was thinking in this ceremony itself, I was like, I will never take any psychedelic ever again. This is way too crazy. This is way too deep for me. Which, of course, I next day I was like, oh, well, this is maybe a little bit too far, but it got me to this point, and I've never been to this point in all of my psychedelic journeys before, and I've had crazy and deep experiences before. But yeah, this was very deep. But the therapeutic effect of it, I would say spiritually, it was still very healing, even though the couple of months and even the whole year afterwards, I was aware of my fear of death. So it made me aware of my fear of death, which I thought I had handled. Like, spiritually, I'm so advanced, I'm not afraid of death anymore. But in the actual core of my being, in the experience itself, I was afraid of death. And I was not conscious of that. And then the year afterwards, I was aware of my fear of death. I was more consciously afraid of death, which is it felt not good for the whole experience of that integration period. It made me shake, it made me a little bit anxious, which I've never been before in my life. But now it was brought up to the surface, which is part of the healing. Now I could study the Tibetan Book of the Dead more consciously to actually work on my fear of death, to actually transcend my fear of death a little bit more, to dive deeper into that fear, to go through it, and then to ultimately let it go. And I'm not at that point yet, by the way, but I'm like, this experience made me aware of that this is a huge part of my healing process. So in that way, the therapeutic effect is just very, very, yeah, it's difficult to say, because it can be a very healing experience, and all of a sudden you're happy that you've, I don't know, broken through some addiction, and all that stuff can happen. You can even heal physical sicknesses with ayahuasca. I've heard crazy stories from people, but also you can have very crazy experiences that can shake you so much that you back off a little bit, that you even take a step back from spiritualities, take a step back from psychedelics. Carissa said, you can't die because you've never lived. Thank you. That's very true. I agree. I agree. And to get to this point of realization that you were never born, so you can never die, is the most beautiful thing you can realize. And we're all, I think, on our journey to realize that truth. But yeah, that was my scariest experiences with ayahuasca, which is also related to healing. Then also I've had crazy experiences which were very scary on high doses of mushrooms, for example, where I met an alien entity which was just humbling me and making me kind of vomit, and I gained nothing out of that. I gained, like, at least consciously, I gained nothing valuable in regards of healing or therapy out of that, which can also happen. So again, to the point of it's an individual path. It's a very unique path to work with those substances, and I think it's definitely not for everybody. But yeah, that's about my scariest experience.
Let's see. I think I've almost caught up. Yeah, for those of you that came on late, there's a glitch. So my voice and my picture aren't exactly syncing. That's why I keep taking myself off the screen when VergO's talking. So you basically, just kind of answered like every other question that I had. Pauline was asking about, do you ever encounter like aliens or ETs? Well, that's a yes, because that happened to you. Or can psychedelics be used in the healing process? Well, you've kind of answered that. I mean, and people are researching psilocybin for that effect. And in my way of thinking, if it's really done properly, again, we should respect it, right? We should fear it to some degree, and that. In but with that, my experience, firstly, you never know what's going to happen. Like you could do like the same mushrooms, the same dose, and have a completely different experience. And I've experienced that when I did a dose, it didn't do much for me. I did the same dose, and I was like 4 hours, just almost like out of my body, and just like floating above my body, like what the heck's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So what else? What else can we talk about? You've been so generous with your time and knowledge, and I guess I mean I feel like it has a lot of value, and you know like I'm saying, it can definitely open up our consciousness, our awareness, stuff like that, and in tandem with meditation and stuff like that. So let me see. I'm just checking. Well, this is an interesting question. Uh, so Pauline was asking, if you would advise like maybe setting up like a crystal grid or something like that. And I'm kind of throwing two questions at the same time. You tell me the best way to set an intention for a session by yourself. I think meditation, prayer, talking to spirit, talking to God, however you do it. I think that's a very personal thing, honestly. I think I could answer that question, for you. But protection and stuff like that, that's a good question, because we're doing something, we don't know exactly how it's going to affect us. I mean, personally, I'll try to make my shares brief, because people want to hear you a lot more than they want to hear me tonight. But I did the ayahuasca many moons ago. And then last year, I said an intent, I'd like to do mushrooms again. And then basically, I did a mediumship event, and I tuned into one person. His father came through. The father said that he's proud of him because his business is helping a lot of people. Well, little did I know that his business was selling cannabis and mushrooms also. And then he just gave me a bunch of mushrooms. Purple mystics, really, really good, strong mushrooms, I might add. And they just gave these to me and just said, well, you've given to me is priceless. They basically gave me over $100 worth of product. So the intention is that. So I've kind of microdosed, and I did some larger doses, and it's been, to me, when I used to do it, it took me to this whole other realm, but now it just kind of enhances. So it's kind of like I've already, again, I don't want to be too in my ego, because the next time I do mushrooms, it's going to tear my ego right down. But because that's what happens. But my experiences are that it's just been kind of enhancing, but it's been really healing, and I've been using this to enhance my healing abilities and to enhance my mind to be able to send energy, because I can feel the energy more clearly on it. So I just wanted to maybe get your take on that, and self-protection and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So regarding the crystals and the altar, I have an altar here, and it's really nice. It's like an altar is a very personal thing, right? You can put on it whatever you feel very connected to, and whichever you feel very connected to is valuable for you and maybe for your protection, for your journeys. I have not experienced the power of crystals, but I know people, for example. Well, I have sometimes I've felt the power of crystals very much, but I have friends, for example, who see light in crystals on psychedelic experiences, especially in like I mean, crystals have very much information. I'm not expert on the topic, but for example, putting a crystal on your altar is also part of setting an intention. When you create your altar, you kind of also create a little bit of your intention and put your intention, because you create your altar intentionally, so you put a little bit of your intention, maybe also for your psychedelic experience, into that also altar. Maybe a picture of an enlightened being. Maybe I have here also a crystal, which is a really nice one. I have mapacho tobacco. I have all kinds of different psychedelics and wood and different kinds of stuff from all over the world on my altar here. And well, I don't know if it helps me on my journeys or not, but it's definitely nice to have. It's a very personal thing, I think. And regarding the protection, so I will share two different perspectives that come to mind, because I have not made up my mind about this topic. Like, no, I'm not certain about that. So I will just share other people's perspective on that topic, which I found very interesting and which I'm contemplating at the moment. So one perspective which really resonates for me is, in psychedelic experiences, you protect yourself by surrender. Like you because from my understanding, all that is part of myself, is myself. So all I am facing is myself. And when you get into a kind of a spiritual battlefield in those psychedelic experiences, which can happen, I've felt like I've been in a battlefield for like on a crazy war zone or something. You win this battle by surrendering. Like, that's your power, that's your protection, this is your weapon. Your weapon is the surrender, the letting go, the accepting and embracing of everything that is coming up, as you take it into yourself, and as you just open yourself up to it. This is one perspective, and I really like that perspective of like seeing it this way, of like, there's ultimately it's all love, and if it's all love, ultimately there's nothing to fear and nothing to protect yourself from. So this is one experience and one perspective. I will share the other perspective, which I'm not 100% sure about, which I would say, but which I've read and heard from other people, and which I've read in a couple of books that I've been reading in the last couple of months, which is, there are spirits, like in the relative realm. In the absolute realm, it's still all one, but in the relative realm of the different densities, there are spirits. There are good spirits, there are bad spirits, there are evil spirits, maybe even. And you can protect yourself against those with different techniques. I'm not an expert on those techniques. Maybe you'll have to go and look for a shaman around the world who you can trust and who can teach you methods of protection. Because I've met shamans, for example, at this ayahuasca retreat in Peru. uh, they protect the space from spells from other brujos, from shamans that want to harm them. It's a crazy world over there in the jungle. Like those things, I think they're real, because I've met people. I've met a shaman. He was attacked by a snake every week for a couple of years, and then like he found out that it was another shaman wanting like have casting a spell on him. And you can protect yourself with different techniques against this. So there is kind of a real protection going on. You can, they say mapacho tobacco, they smoke a lot of mapacho to protect the space, to clear the space from spirits. They have different kind of agua de floridas and different kind of brews that they put on or drink to protect themselves and to protect the space. They sing the Icaros. The Icaros, also a different topic, also related to healing, but also maybe related to protection. And what I've read from Julian Palmer's book, he was like, you can protect yourself from, he met like crazy DMT entities, and some of them are good, and some of them he didn't want to get them too close to him. So he was protecting himself by sound. And he was talking about the usage of sound for guiding and protecting yourself in psychedelic journeys. For example, if you make a high-pitched sounds, you can either scare them away or maybe just like protect yourself against them. So just go, or this what the people in Brazil do, all these tribes is like, how this is like sound protection. I would say I'm not speaking from direct experience. I've not verified this for myself and my own experiences, but I find this idea very interesting, because sound is definitely a tool in my toolkit for guiding journeys. For example, when I'm getting a little bit into a bad headspace, maybe I will use a mantra like divine love, Christ consciousness, divine love, Christ consciousness, divine love, Christ consciousness. And I would just repeat that, or Om Asatoma Sat Gamaya, or Loka Sama. Just like all these mantras are nice tools to have, which I can repeat and then get into this zone, or deep, loud Om, a loud, deep, long Om is also a very helpful tool for protection. Maybe I haven't felt that I needed to protect myself from spirits yet. I was more getting like going with the letting go and surrendering technique, to just embrace everything that is coming up. But those are two different perspectives in the psychedelic community, which are interesting to look into and to contemplate for yourself.
Awesome. Let me see if we can get me back. All right. Oh, yeah, there's still a delay. Okay. Very good suggestion. I agree with all of it. And we talk about this a lot here, to remember, always be in your heart. When you're in your heart, you're in your power. When you're in your heart, your brain expands and you expand into spirit. If you do everything right and you're still being messed with spirits, it's either an aspect of yourself, in my humble opinion. Again, sometimes we're doing battle with our own egos and stuff like that, or it's just a spiritual test that on some level you set that up for yourself. But remember, the one that created you is going to protect you always, even if you are battling demons or negative spirits. Stay in the heart, stay in your power. And I think working with the medicines really helps you to understand what that power is. So yeah, great suggestions all around. I really appreciate that. And all right, we could go on and on, like everything you're saying. I could be talking for hours on all of these points. They're brilliant. You're brilliant. I really appreciate having you, and maybe at some point we can do another collaboration down the road and follow through if spirit guides us in that direction, or whatever. So I just want to check in if you have any closing thoughts on things or any advice for people that are newbies or people, again, that I know we talked a little bit about this, but if there's any closing messages or anything that you feel guided to share with us at this time.
Yeah. What I always like to share to everybody is, don't forget to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
This is the main focus of myself. All the God realization, all the spiritual practice, all the psychedelic practice, all the exercise and career and life purpose, everything is part of that life that we are building and that we are living, all our relationships, all the ups and the downs. But I mean, what is it for if we can't enjoy it? So one of my main spiritual practices and one of my main practices in life is to be able to perceive reality in a way that is enjoyable for me. The goods and the bads, the evil and the good, the everything that is included in life is beautiful, and cultivating that perception of beauty and that perspective of being able to enjoy everything that is happening, um, is one of my favorite things to do and to cultivate and to integrate.
That's a great way to end. I think we just lost Barry.
I think my sound is still there, right?
Your sound is still there. We can still
Yeah.
hear you. Well, that's a perfect. Enjoy the journey. Something's only negative or positive because our belief system makes it so. Basically, it's all about experience. It's all about growth. Don't fear negative spirits. And I try to tell people that, or negative entities, and you'll find you're going to be less vulnerable by that, because what we resist persists. What we focus on, we create in our lives. And like I said, if you do everything right and you still have to deal with some demonic force or whatever, you're going to be okay, because spirit's going to protect you. You're going to learn a valuable lesson. So thank you so much, VergO. And I know it's late for you, so let's let you get some rest. And everybody, check out his channel and learn more about this fascinating topic. Of course, I believe that psychedelics have their place in spirituality. I don't think that should be the focus. I think spirit should be the focus. But as I said in the beginning, it's a valuable tool. It can be misused, but it can also be properly used and properly channeled. And through that, it can enhance your ability to open up to sense spirit. And then you have a better perception or a better conception of what work that you still need to do. I mean, when I do it, all of my issues are right in my face sometimes. So it's not always fun when I do it. Like all of my psychological stuff, my emotional stuff, it's like it gets reflected back at me, but I learn and I grow. So beautiful. And I'm a big believer of the shamanic journeys, of either I make up my own ceremony or work with a shaman that's very skilled. And I think for me that's the way to do it. So let's wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. Namaste. Thank you, VergO, and keep up the great work. Bye, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you very much for having me. It was super nice. It was very enjoyable. I always get very energized during those podcasts.
Thank you so much.